Well, welcome to another Motivational Monday right here on See Hear Love. And are you ready today to become a fierce-hearted woman?
All right.
Are you ready to become the stronger, braver, truer woman that you long to be? Well, I know that I want to be that. And
Yes.
Cheryl, Joanna?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. No, we're going to,
got my roar on, ready to go.
All right. And to help us understand what it means to be fierce-hearted and to help us unleash the fierce-heartedness inside of us, we have a special guest with us, Holley Gerth.
Yay.
So glad to be here.
Welcome, Holley. I'm going to gush on you a little bit so that our viewers know who you are. But Holley Gerth, this woman right here, in our kitchen, is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. So we have a best-selling author right here. Ooh. She's a certified life coach, a speaker, and she loves connecting with the hearts of women through her popular blog and books like, for some of you, you've already read them. I've read it and I loved it. You're Already Amazing. That's the book. She's also co-founder of Encourage and partner with Dayspring. And I love that because that's some great product and things that I've used over the years as well. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I know we're going to learn a lot from you. And I love to, Holley, just to get going because there's a lot of meat and content, but fierce-hearted. I have not heard, I think, that saying really ever in that way. What does that mean for some of us? Because I want to be that, even though I don't know what it means yet. But so just tell me anyway.
Yeah, well, I think I might have made the word up. So that
I love it.
if you're an author, you can do that. You can just make up words.
Oh, okay.
But it means really living more fully and loving more bravely.
Living more fully and loving more bravely.
Yes.
Love that.
I love that. Okay, so living more fully, I think for a lot of people, they'd be like, I want that. Is it possible? And what does even that look like?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So what would you say for, I mean, I know it's going to change for a lot of different people, but what does that mean, like live fully?
Yeah, well, I would say if someone's watching and thinking, this is not me, I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm hurt, I'm afraid, that's okay, because that's actually the place where I started writing the book from. I had gone through a hard time and been hurt by someone, and I was on this flight in the dark thinking, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to shut my heart. And I felt like Jesus say, you know, I'll show you a different way if you'll just give me a chance. Wow. So I pulled out my Kindle, that's all I had, and was like typing in the dark, like scaring my seatmate, and wrote like what is the Fiercehearted manifesto in this book. And so living more fully to me simply means daring to open your heart and saying, Jesus, you can show me a different way to live than how I am now.
Right.
That's
it's
scary.
risky.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's where the brave part comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Ooh, that is risky. Do anybody, like, what does that feel like when she says that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we've all experienced that. I mean, as soon as you say, like, I'd had an experience that made me think maybe I'm going to close myself off, and we've all gone through that, where we've had experiences that have hurt us.
Yeah.
And you have to like make a conscious choice.
Yeah. You do.
Because otherwise and we all maybe it depends maybe on the moment in our life, but you become more closed or bitter or, you know, sort of pessimistic against people and new opportunities in your life.
Yeah.
You have to choose. I love that.
Yes.
You're sitting on that plane making a decision.
Yeah. And it's not always that obvious, but it was for me in that moment that I needed to intentionally say, okay, I'm not going to close the door of my heart. And I think, like you said, we either have a tendency to like hide or to like come out swinging. you know, like one of the two.
Yes. Cheryl's like,
come out swinging. Got that. So what does it take to be fierce-hearted?
Well,
what is sort of the checklist for that?
I think the first is what we've been talking about, getting honest about where you are, you know, being able to say like, I'm not fine right now. And then being willing to say that to God, you know, admit that to him. Because I felt like I'm going to be in big trouble. Like I'm an author and a speaker and coach, all these things. I'm not supposed to have moments like this, you know, but we all do. And so admitting that to ourselves and then to God. And then I think to at least one other human, you know, someone in our lives that we feel safe with, that we can just say the same to you. And I really think that's the start of the process, is getting really honest.
And then, okay, so once we acknowledge our brokenness, what's that sort of first step forward?
Yeah, I think the first step forward is understanding how we have drifted away from our fierce heart. Because I think as women, we are all born fierce-hearted. You know, like I love the word helper for Eve is actually the word ezer, which is only used for Eve and God, and it's only used in the context of military aid when it refers to God. And so we are born fierce-hearted warriors. And then along the way, we all get tired, we get hurt, we, have things happen, and we can drift from that. So I don't think this is a message of like become for the first time. It's more like remember who you were created to be.
That's what I love about
Beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
Like I'm so passionate about identity.
Yes.
And I love that you're reframing our thinking. You've
Yes.
always been a warrior.
Yes.
You've just fallen.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
get back up, as
Yes.
opposed to like I've got to put this armor on. It was
always
as you
there.
said, it was always there. I love
Yeah,
that.
this is our true identity.
And I think that ties in because, I mean, this is out of the book that you've written, The Fiercehearted, Live Fully, Love Bravely. And here's the book for all of us to see. So in that fullness, you were saying we're being honest about our brokenness. We're making choices that we don't close ourselves off. But then I also like love bravely. Because I think for women, and even for me, loving is a choice too. It's a trust thing.
Yes, it
it's a vulnerability thing. It's I've been hurt in love. And so that's sometimes hard to give yourself away again.
Yes.
And whether that's like a lover marriage relationship, or if that's just a girlfriend that's hurt me deeply.
Yes.
Or someone
So-
you're caring for. you know?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think of, in the Christian context, often we're trying to help people. And
Yeah.
sometimes the people we're trying to help, it doesn't go well in the end.
Yeah.
And you've done so much for them, and then they
like-
throw it back at you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that love
Yeah.
bravely, talk about that, because I think for a lot of us, even around the table, that's something that is what we've lived with and through, and still making decisions about
Yes.
to do that.
Absolutely. And that's, like I said, that's the place where I was. I'd been hurt by someone close to me, and I was like, that's it, I'm done, like, no more, let's put up the vaults, And so I think loving bravely doesn't mean not having boundaries. It doesn't mean like, here's all of me, I'm going to give everyone access to all of my heart. But it's saying, I'm going to love like Jesus did, which is with kindness and daring to reach out to those who are different than us, and daring to be vulnerable so that other people feel the freedom to be imperfect too.
Yeah.
And so when I say love bravely, it's a messy, ongoing process, but it's just saying, because I think we're like Adam and Eve, again, that, our natural tendency is to hide and to isolate and to keep ourselves safe. So it's just saying, I'm going to keep putting myself out there, even when it's messy, even when it's hard, even when I get hurt. And we can't do that. We don't humanly have the capacity. But Jesus can do that through us, because he knows what it's like to be stretched out on a cross, which is the place where your heart is the most exposed, and how to do that, because we can't,
I often talk about how love, like real love, not the kind we usually offer, real love gives 100% and expects 0% in return.
Tough.
And so in order to give 100% expecting 0% in return, I mean, there's no condition. This is not a conditional love. It takes such courage to do that.
It does.
And obviously Jesus is like the number one model of what that looks like.
Yeah.
To give 100% and know that for some, 0% is going to happen in return. Like while we were still sinners,
Yeah.
he died for
Yes,
us.
yes.
While we were still flipping him the bird, he dies for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you change that thinking? Because I think in our own humanity and humanness, there's so much about rights, and you hurt me, and conditions, and so I'm going to hurt you, and then I'm going to close, because I have every right to do that.
It's a contract,
Yeah,
right?
Holley, how do you start changing that tape recording in your head to do that?
Yeah,
Because that's, I think, the biggest thing. Like, I think a lot of us know it, and we go like this, but then to actually do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is, at least for me, I kind of walked around with my heart out here being like, you're responsible for this, to different people. Like, I'm going to give you control over my identity, over my worth, how I feel today. So ironically, I think the first step is kind of reclaiming our heart, because we're also supposed to guard our hearts. Proverbs says, guard your heart above all else. And so taking that back to God, like you were saying, you're the source of my identity, you're the source of my worth, taking it to him first, and then being willing to fight on behalf of our own hearts, to say, when I started this journey, I was like, okay, I'm going to go home, I'm going back to counseling. I love counseling. It's been super helpful to me. I realized I was in a season of depression and anxiety, which is a lifelong battle. So I went to counseling. I went to my doctor. I went to my tribe, and said, first I have to fight for my own heart before I can start loving anyone else. And then I actually think that boundaries make us better at loving. As Christians, we can say, I need to just let everyone take advantage of me. But I think then we end up feeling resentful and bitter and overwhelmed. Yeah. So I think it's learning to be brave enough to say yes, but also to be brave enough to say no.
Oh, yes.
And knowing
yes to the no. Sorry, I meant yes to the no.
I got a question for you, Holley. It just popped into my head. What was the hardest chapter for you to write in that book, and why?
I would say the first one, because I almost didn't write this book.
Wow.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, the first line says, I tried not to write this book. It's the first time
I love it.
It's the first time I've ever missed a deadline, and it was because I was burnt out and exhausted and hurt. And I thought I will write this really safe book. So literally, like the day before I started this, I told my husband I need to go to Barnes and Noble and look at some maps of Israel. Like that's where I was. I thought, like I'm just gonna play it safe. I'm gonna write this very like head book, and so. It was coming to that place where I was just at the end of myself and had nothing left to give. And this book was a big part of how Jesus healed me personally. Like I showed up at a coffee shop every morning and was just like, okay, what are we going to work through today? And so that's why I'm really excited about it, because I feel like it was a transformational process for me. I'm a different person than when I wrote sentence 1. And so that's what I want other people to experience.
I think there's a learning in that, because sometimes you just go and you do it. Like sometimes, even for me, I want the big magical experience, the shivering, the sign. And I've heard before, as some people have said to me, mentors, you just go and do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the will and the choice, and you don't think God's speaking. There's no, amazing spiritual experience.
Yes.
You just go and do it.
Yeah.
And in the process of it, God starts revealing and showing up in the way that you've wanted or needed.
Yes.
But I think that's good, because I think sometimes for us women, we don't do something because we want that kind of answer, and then sometimes it's you just go and do.
Yes.
Because for you to go to a coffee shop and just write, you probably were like, seriously?
Yeah. Like, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
But I think that's a big part of being fierce-hearted, is just showing up. And if I had said, I'm not going to write this book until I feel like I have it all together. I'm not going to write this book until I process my issues. I'm not going to write this book until I'm completely over my depression or done with my counseling, or, like that would not be there today. Like I wrote it messy and I wrote it broken because it's not about me. And I think that's what we forget, that like it's not about us. Like there's an Old Testament story where God spoke through a donkey. Like that's been my go-to story as I prepared to be here. I'm like, all right, I'm going on the show with all these awesome, cool women, but God spoke through a donkey.
Okay, we're going to affirm to you right now, you are no donkey. Wow.
Just
but
as a reminder that it's just not about us. It's about our willingness, but God's faithfulness.
And it's so interesting to me, because I'm sitting here and there's a couple of friends that I know, and their tagline is don't mistake my meekness for weakness.
Yes.
And I was sitting here thinking, like, how do we define fierceness? Is it like I'm more of a boisterous, loud, I'm in the room, but someone could be very gentle and quiet and still have a fierce heart, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be something different than just strength.
Yes, absolutely.
So what is it?
And I would say, people wouldn't look at me and be like fierce automatically. Like I'm 100% introvert on all those personality tests. My
and
whole
welcome
life.
to the show.
Yes, here I am. And I've been told all my life, like, you're so quiet, and so you wouldn't necessarily say
so
fierce.
Fierceness is something else.
But I like to say, for example, like I love saying having a soft heart in a hard world is courage, not weakness.
Yeah.
Like I think in our world today, like kindness is an act of bravery.
That's my favorite word.
And there are even verses, like I love this proverb that says, a gentle tongue can break a bone. And I think in our world today, where everyone's shouting and everyone's being so aggressive, that like that is another way of being strong, you know?
Yeah, blessed are the meek.
Yes.
Meek is power under control.
So it's both, you know, it's
Yeah.
not one or the other. It's just knowing however God has wired us, he can use us.
Yeah, because a lot of women, I think, when they hear fierceness, often it comes out like, I have to be masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super strong.
Like, or, you know, to be successful in a workplace or to be heard as a leader, I need to act like a man. And some people may, but it's fine if that's maybe how you are. But it's like you're trying to put on something that isn't actually natural to you. But there's that strength and fierceness that can come from a very,
You can be very
feminine.
delicate, very feminine.
I love that.
Love that. And
You're helping us reframe, right? And almost redefine what that is. It's good. You know, Holley, one of the things I want to get to, because out of this book, and people go, wow, like a best-selling author and you're a speaker and all that, but there's a lot of stuff in your life that, you know, for some people, either they would say, well, she'd be discounted from ministry or being somebody, you know, a Christian role model. Because, I mean, you just said now, you know, depression and something that you've struggled with and ongoing with that. I know in your story you've had, you know, infertility and then adopting an adult, you know, daughter. You're very open about these broken relationships. And I love that, because I think even for us, that's you know, being honest and transparent is so important these days. As we're tired of everybody fronting and managing this perfect look when we're all like crumbling inside. Talk to us about that, because I mean, not that those things define us, but they do help us, you know, in how God has, you know, created us and sees a potential for us, as well as it's part of our being fierce-hearted as well.
It is.
And I want us to help women know that, because sometimes we get defined by these things and they crush us and push us down from ourselves even more than other people. So talk about that, because you've been through a lot. I mean, those are big things.
And it makes me think of, like, I had a friend going through a very difficult situation that would be like what you described, where she would say, like, this could discount me or whatever, and she said, this is who I am now. And I said, no, that is your circumstances. It is not your identity.
Right, yes.
So I'm someone who struggles with depression. I'm someone who struggles with infertility. I've had other struggles. I will all my life. That is not who I am. That is not who the women watching are. We are beloved daughters of God, called and chosen by the King, anointed, placed here for such a time as this, and nothing can change that. And so I think telling the truth about all the parts of our story gives God glory, because like there's that verse that says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And those things are part of my testimony. And so if I want God getting all the glory he can from my story, then it means talking about those parts too.
And there's bravery in that. There's bravery in telling your story.
Yes.
That's
and
powerful.
I mean, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. That's the truth from Jesus. But I think when we tell the truth to each other, we set each other free too. I mean, every time I hear a woman say, like, this is where I am, and I've been there too, I feel set free. And so I think as women, we need to commit to giving each other that gift of saying, this is where I really am.
Oh, that is powerful. And I love too that you know, as you speak this and share this, you're giving women permission to do that. It's an interesting thing. You think that, you know, women would feel open and courageous just to share. But as I've been speaking and meeting with women, there's a sense of, like, when you share your story, it actually opens up permission for them to, like, engage and share theirs. And I've seen the power of God work in ways of, like, I just shared this little thing, and it just went boom and opened them up.
And we've seen this on the show over and over again. When we, like, you know, we've never done a show where we sit down and for 30 minutes hear your story. Maybe we should someday. But I mean, so we're getting snippets is what I'm trying to say. Like little, like, sort of like bits at a time. And if people are watching over the long term, they're going to hear more of how the pieces all fit together. But it's these moments where we've heard people over and over say to us on the show, like, that thing, that's me too, or that's what I needed today, because that's what I'm going through. If you got through it, I can get through it.
So I got to ask you before the time is up, because I feel like I just feel this in my heart, there's someone watching that's stuck. I just get that word, that's stuck. How did you work through, or how did you get out of that place of depression?
Well, I think it takes a whole lot of different resources. I think we do ourselves a huge disservice if we treat it like it's just a spiritual problem. You know, that's part of it. So it's saying, okay, am I connected to Jesus? That's one part. Then like I said before, I'll say again, counseling I think is so important. Going to your doctor, because there are physical things. I mean, things can be off in our bodies, you know, and going there and saying, how am I eating, sleeping, then having a supportive tribe, which may start with just one person, might start with just your counselor, and then you expand out. And then just being gentle with yourself, saying, this is not a failure.
I can see the list coming up
You know,
as you're talking.
this is just part of being a fallen, broken human in a fallen, broken world.
Be gentle with yourself.
So good.
And like I mean, I've
that.
gone through it myself, and like there's in like my darkest time in depression, I had this like verse that I wrote in my journal that is basically, the gist of it is like, what we go through is so we can help other people go through it. And like my level of like empathy, compassion, patience, tenderness towards other people who are experiencing anxiety or depression is so much higher, because I know how it is. And so it's not wasted. Nothing is wasted.
And there's also a flip side. Like the flip side of that part of the way I'm wired is my sensitivity and empathy and creativity. And so not forgetting that yes, we may have this struggle, but it comes with these strengths too.
That's it.
You know, it's interesting, because I think that when I go and speak, so many women, when I share, because I went through a very dark night of the soul, I went through a very months and months of depression, and deep, I couldn't even get out of bed. And I'm so thankful for community. Like my tribe, I say that over and over again. If you do not have your people, then I encourage people to find that, or churches to reach out, because I don't know how I could have gotten through that. But you're right. I remember even the darkest place that it would come up. I would hear little things like, Mel, there's a reason for this. And even in the darkness, I'm like, no, there's not. I'm angry at God, and all that. But I see that now, because now that I'm able to speak about it, people really related and said, wow, I thought I was the only one in my church. Or as a Christian woman, how can I be depressed if the Holy Spirit is in me? And I'm like, what? I'm right? Because people are hearing these things, and then to just sit quietly and pray with them and say, hey, listen, sister, I've been there too. There's just something about that, and that I've gotten through, and I'm very aware of it. But I know that through some things you can do it, get through it as well.
Absolutely.
And I love what you said, that it just starts like, maybe the only person for now is your counselor.
That's okay.
And the circle builds up from there, because there are a lot of people who I mean, you have a lot of friends. You talk about them regularly. We know your friends. They're all over Instagram. You post all their pictures. They're amazing people. But not everybody has that.
That's true.
Some people barely have the one. And no wonder you're depressed if you don't even have one person to truly care for you, to hang out with on the weekend, to do something with. Of course.
Say that.
It's so difficult. And so maybe it's the counselor is that first person that begins to care for you in that kind of a way.
And can I say this too, that there's victory. The victory is breaking the silence.
Exactly.
Victory is breaking the silence
it's
to
getting
the
honest,
one.
like we said.
But just actually saying it. There's something that breaks in that.
It's
It's
like
the
admitting
beginning.
it. I think it breaks the shame and the guilt. Because
Yes,
the enemy is
that's
an
it.
opportunist, and so when we're weakest, he's going to always try to bring in shame and guilt. And so just saying, you know what, this is not a reason to be ashamed. It's not a reason to feel guilty. It just is what it is. And I'm going to be fierce-hearted and admit that I'm here, and just take one tiny step, 5 minutes, one little tiny step forward.
One of the things I like in your book, and I love this part, no one has really talked to me about this, but you talk about having a childlike faith in God. And it's interesting. I've had people say that about me, and I actually thought that was quite offensive, because I thought, well, I'm a mature, grown woman. Why are you? I actually thought it was more of an offensive, condescending thing. In your book and how you speak, it's something that's important for us to remember, not forget, to have a childlike faith as we come to God. Talk about that, because I think I want to be reminded, and I think a lot of us who've been in the church or jaded by the work and life are missing that part.
And I wrote that out of seeing two little girls playing in the rain and jumping in the puddles, and I was like, maybe I've gotten childlike faith all wrong, because it's, I think, reconnecting, like we talked about before, to those warrior girls that we started out being, and realizing that children are messy and they are wild and they are honest. When they skin their knee, they come running right to you. They help each other up when they fall down. somehow we've thought childlike faith is like sitting like this, you know, in Sunday school with our little cup of Kool-Aid. And it's not like, that's not what it means to be childlike. So I think everything we've talked about is childlike faith, being honest, acknowledging when we're hurt, like daring to be messy, speaking the truth. That's all childlike faith.
I often think of, I have a nephew who, when he was, it's one of my favorite quotes from him, when he was 2 years old, he was there, and his older sister was there. His older, wiser sister was there. And so I asked little 2-year-old Elliot, I said, Elliot, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he says, a lion. A lion. I want to be a lion when I grow up. And his big sister, who's so smart and wise at 6 years old, says, Elliot, you can't be a lion. You won't make any money. It's not actually you can't become a lion. It's just not lucrative. It's not a lucrative business career path.
Right.
No, but what happens is I use that as an illustration because it's at 2 years old. He has this lion heart. There's this lion in him, and he went around for that whole year with a tiger tail attached to all of his pants.
Oh, I love
like a stuffed tail. And his mom had to attach it to all his pants. It was amazing. And anyways, the point is though that like he was already being cut down. I mean, it's his sister. It was. She's not doing it, but it's these things that happen to us that we have this fierceness in us, and then somebody or a circumstance tells us from early days, not possible.
It's remembering our roar that we've all got one inside.
We all gotta get that.
It's our roar.
Get that tiger tail on.
I think we should get tiger tails and just roar. Somebody comes at us and go roar.
And a roar, ladies, not what I did in the green room, which was a
in the
meow.
makeup room. It's like meow. We're like, well, that's not a
like,
roar.
Cheryl, come on.
Yeah. No, I love that. You know, Holley, thank you for reminding us about this. I mean, you need to come back here, first of all, but I think it's just these kinds of moments as sisters, you know, to be reminded that, you know, we were all warrior and fierce-hearted from the beginning. And somehow in life, people have, you know, put us down, spoken lies over us. We've believed them, and I think now is time to release women into the freedom and the truth of who they are that God's created them to be. And I'm like getting excited because I just feel that I look around and women are like beaten down, and I'm like, that is so not what God, you know, has for you and wants for you. So thank you for bringing this word to the world.
Yes, and we are promised victory. You know, we always win in the end.
We know how the story ends.
We know how the story ends. So Holley Gerth, it's all your information, all your books at holleygerth.com. And thank you for writing. We're waiting for your next book.
Yay, thank you.
Is that happening? Or?
I'm writing it.
Can you say anything about it?
Can it be called See, Hear, Love?
I was going to take that.
So it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to our viewers, I hope that this encouraged you. And if you want to be fierce-hearted, go and pick this book up, holleygerth.com. We want you to be fierce-hearted along with us, to live fully and to love bravely. All the information about us, Holley, our blog posts are all on seehearlove.com. So make sure you go there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our stories. And again, thank you for the love and encouragement that you give to us so that we can share stories that will encourage you and show you to God.
We should end with a roar.
Okay, all right. In 3, 2, 1. Roar! That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.